Ah yes, the age-old question of playing jungle. To gank or not to gank? When or even if you should gank instead of farming as a jungler is a story as old as time in League of Legends. What's up everyone, my name is Coach Leo and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the 5 key ganking frameworks that I have cultivated over the years, not only from my pro play and challenger solo queue experience, but also coaching hundreds of players just like you. These ganking fundamentals transcend meta and are the building blocks to becoming a complete jungler, as well as giving you reference points you can always come back to if you are ever feeling confused. Intro. Although the ganking skill set is more intimidating and takes longer to develop as opposed to just full clear to bot, it is vital for your growth as a player because without it, you're most likely going to cap your skill ceiling and start to struggle in the higher ranks. The thing we must first understand is that failing ganks is okay. In fact, it's actually required, as a big part of what ganking comes down to is champion knowledge. Getting in the repetitions is half the equation. The other half is what I'll be sharing with you guys today, which is based on 5 key ganking principles. Chapter 1. Minion waves. The very first step in judging whether a gank will be successful or not is by looking at the position of both waves. The more toward your side it is, the more space and time you'll have to damage and chase down your enemy. Generally, you should only look to gank a lane if the wave is meeting at a neutral position or more towards your side, which way it's pushing. Now comes the next step to understanding minion waves. Simply put, if the enemy wave has more minions, it will push toward your side of the map, and vice versa. If a minion wave is pushed into a tower, this is called a crash, which is then followed by something called a bounce, where that tower's wave will now bounce back and slowly push, if left untouched, all the way into the enemy tower. These are important things to know for the next step. Timing of the gank. Now that we understand the basic minion wave principles and the ideal position we want to gank, now comes our timing. We must look to time our gank when the minion waves meet, not too early, but not too late. The best chance you have of killing the enemy laner is when they are distracted, either by last hitting minions or fighting your ally laner. However, if you gank before the waves meet, the enemy laners are less distracted and more alert to potentially spot you. If you gank too late, the enemy laner will have killed his wave and with nothing else to do, leave or go into fog of war. Stacked waves. Pretty self-explanatory, however I see this throughout all elos. Ganking a lane when the enemy has a huge wave can still work, however you need to be careful, especially in the early game where minions do a lot of damage, and the laner can potentially play in his wave, choosing to fight to the death. In some circumstances where your laner is low health, it can become even more disastrous if he dies during this gank, as he will lose all of that golden XP from that big wave. Lane gank. The lane gank is a very powerful gank I decided to throw in this section as it requires you to have some minion wave knowledge. Particularly effective if the enemy wave is bouncing toward you or your ally's minion wave is bouncing toward the enemy. In both circumstances, you can fish for an opportunity as you recall in the bush to either kill the enemy laner as the wave pushes towards you, or to counter gank and shatter your laner when his wave is pushing towards the enemy. Chapter 2. Information ahead of time. Laner's conditions. Before looking for a gank, it's important to check conditions early to prevent us from wasting time. Now, there is plenty of information we can gather in terms of laner's conditions. There's health, mana, level, items, runes, and ult status. The more information we can process in a short amount of time, the better idea we will have if the gank is good or not. Processing this information will take some practice, which is again why we are building the framework. Generally, the main thing to look for is health, as this means volatility and a better chance in swooping in for an easy kill. Body language. While checking the laner's conditions, we can also check how they are moving and what their body language is telling us. If they're moving forward or trading heavily, even at low health, you can conclude that they may want to go for a solo kill on your laner. If they took a bad trade and backed off, it may mean that they want to recall or play safe. Obviously, this is going to mostly come down to intuition, but getting into the minds of laners is an essential skill for a jungler. Conditional ganks. This is where ability knowledge will help, as some champions are just not gankable if they have certain ability available, like a Kali W or a dash like ZW. When those champions do not have those abilities available, they are actually quite easy to kill, which means ganking them is conditional on whether or not they have already used that ability. Part 3. Your pathing and ability usage. Sweep but don't hit. You know how we talked about the enemy laner being distracted before? Well, if you gank at the right time and use sweeper, even if they have a ward, most of the time you can actually just run right past it and still go for the gank. This is because when you use sweeper on wards, you are spotted for a very small second on the minimap. However, once you disable the ward, you instantly go invisible again. Most laners are not looking at their minimap while distracted by trading and last hitting. Trust me, I've killed many laners this way, even challenger players. Avoid wards. If you don't have sweeper, we should still be looking to avoid common ward spots by ganking through river or from behind the enemy. Champions that can hop over walls are especially effective at doing this. Cut them off. I can't stress this one enough. The amount of times I've seen players walk in a direct line to the enemy only to miss the kill by 100 HP is tragic. When you go for a gank, always take the line of pathing that puts you behind the enemy and only turn to walk or hit them once you are in that line to where they should escape. Secure, don't save. Do not path to save your team. Make sure you secure kills by still cutting off the enemy's escape. There are some situations where if your laner is being tower dove and you can make a direct path to not only secure the kill, but also save them, of course you can do that. How to use our abilities. So after we cut off our opponent comes step 2, when we actually use our abilities. Fundamentally for every single champion, the same rules apply. Only use our mobility or skill shot button when necessary, meaning if you can walk up and auto attack someone by cutting them off, you do so. A champion like Xin Zhao can be used as a perfect example where you want to walk up and press Q first to knock the enemy up and guarantee your W damage, but also save your E in case the enemy uses some type of mobility ability. If we'd used W first in this gank, where it is not guaranteed, meaning there's a potential to miss, and then used E when already in Q range, meaning losing our gap closer, there is a chance we let a 100% kill slip through our fingers just from the misuse of our ability priority. Part 4. Champion knowledge and ability knowledge. Gankable champs tier list. Okay, so you know how we talked about that gray area in the intro? Well, here it is. Not knowing what all the champions do and what abilities they have is of course going to make it harder to know what ganks are good and bad. So to fast track that process, or at least set a foundation, I've made a tier list of every single champion and how easy or hard they are to kill with a quick summary for each. But before we get into that tier list, did you know that there's an even easier method to fast track this process? Introducing the Jungle Academy. Are you tired of being stuck the same rank every season? Ready to join a community of like-minded junglers with proven results? The Jungle Academy is the ultimate resource to fast track your potential, already having helped hundreds of players just like you achieve their ranked goals. Gain access to daily group VOD reviews run by a selection of challenger coaches like myself, champion guides, coaching VOD libraries, and much more. Not to mention an entire community of active players, including our expert coaches, happy to answer any questions and provide guidance throughout your journey, saving you hours of time and energy. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and join today. So for this tier list, I have a few categories that we're going to go through, ranging from super easy champions to gank, all the way to 1v2 or 2v3 machines. And of course, again, with this tier list, there is still going to be some gray area. Some games, some champions are going to die easier than others. Sometimes people just have their monitors off. The goal of this tier list is to give some general categorization on each champion, just so we can have, again, that framework, that foundation that we can build off. So let's get into it. Starting off in the super easy and easy category. Now, these champions are champions that basically have no mobility or minor preventative abilities. Obviously, the easy and super easy categories are similar. Just the easy has decent preventative abilities compared to the super easy, but super easy champions basically have no mobility. I think maybe Kai'Sa could move up to the easy if no R category, and potentially Draven, but Draven also likes to play super aggressive. So all of these champs here, no mobility. They still have some preventative abilities, such as like a Lulu, speed up, or polymorph, or slow, jinx, traps, and W, but overall, very easy to kill. And then in the easy category, it's basically the same thing, but they have better preventative abilities like Melio, Bubble, Orianna, QW, and usually, Orianna's run like Phase Rush and stuff like that. Some of them have like small, minor mobility like Vayne, Tumble, Zig, Satchel, Nautilus queuing away. Not going to go through every single one, but they're pretty easy to gank. Now moving on to the easy if no R category. So these are champions that basically have very good ults for escape or their durability. So these are things like Rise ult, when Teemo hits 6, he throws a bunch of shrooms down, makes him durable, makes it harder to kill him. Alistar ult makes him super tanky. Swain R makes him super durable. Zillion R delays, revives. Nasus R super durable. Malphite R super good for escape. Mord R durable, just 1v1s you back. Olaf R, I could see Olaf going into a category that we're going to see next, which is the 1v2 machine category. But if he has no R, obviously you can't just run out of your CC. So these are all champions that highly rely on their ults to escape a gank. And when they don't have those ults, they're actually very easy to kill. Maybe even easy or super easy category when they don't have ults. Taking a look at the moderate category now. Now, these are champions that is kind of hard for me to put in a category because sometimes they're actually pretty easy to kill. However, they still have some like durability in their kits. Some of them kind of belong in potentially the 1v2 categories like Darius, like Trundle, like Aatrox. Like these guys can sometimes, if they're, you know, they're fed and they have ult, they can just like 1v2. But generally, you know, they have some durability. They're hard to kill. Trundle, you know, obviously has his pillar and his W, so not easy depending on if he has those abilities down. Echo could probably go down a tier, but he still has his E. So these are generally champions that just have good durability or good mobility and are very durable, is kind of like this moderate category. All right, so now we're moving into the very hard and hard champions to gank. So these guys are basically the champs with all the mobility, with all the tools that they need. So for this portion of the video, because it's so conditional whether or not you gank them, I will be going through each champion and telling you what to kind of look out for. A lot of these champions, they just have extreme ability, either from one ability in their kit or multiple. So starting off, we'll just go from Zeri and we'll move upwards. So Zeri has her E. She can go over massive walls. So if she has E up and she's either near a wall, next to wall, pretty much ungankable. Tristana, she has her ult and her W. So unless she has her ult down and her W down, pretty much very, very hard to gank. Ornn, he has his E, he has his ult, he has his slow. I would say he's maybe a little bit easier, but again, it just depends on if he has his E down. Urgot E, another just, you know, little mobility spell. He also has his Q to stop you from ganking him. Silas, he has his little E. So again, these are hard, but you still can kill them if they have used those abilities. So these three guys, and even Tristana, if they had used that ability, they actually become pretty gankable. Same thing with Tahm Kench. If he W's in, he's a chicken nugget. Riven, if she uses her whole combo, you're looking to kill Riven when she's playing really aggressive. Again, when she's playing like in a volatile way and she's going forwards and she's using abilities forwards, definitely you don't want to ignore them, right? You don't want to ignore these champions that I'm showing you. It's just that you need to be watching out for something. If she hasn't used anything and you just run in kill her, she's just going to press E, Q, Q, stun, run. Corki, W, you're looking for his W. Wukong, you're looking for his W. Also when he hits 6, also kind of hard to kill. Another kind of fighting champ like Riven, where you're looking to play off them being aggressive rather than you trying to be the aggressor on them. You want to kind of react to them when they're being aggressive. Ezreal, you need to watch out for his E. Gragas, E and ult. His ult is a big cast, which blasts you away. His E can either be used to escape or even just to cancel some abilities. So for example, you know, if I'm playing like, I don't know, a Zac and I'm jumping onto a Gragas, he can E me out of the air. So that's something you have to watch out for. Gnar, the way that you want to play around Gnar is that he jumps, his E, when he jumps on top of you or on minions, he gets a little double bounce. So when you verse Gnar, it's very important that you don't give him that jump. Galio, super durable. If he has his E up, he can just E away. The way you want to verse Galio is actually you want to try and block his E if you go for a gank. However, you know, champion like Galio, he takes Aftershock. Super hard to kill. He can also just press W and then E ahead of you. Azir, you want to be looking for his WEQ or his WE, just a little hop. If he uses Q, super mobility. Asol flies away. Shen stops you from auto-attacking him, can taunt away, can jump away. Rakan, oh my goodness, his champion is like the hardest champ in the game to kill. 2 E's, a W, and all, just unkillable champ. Rel, kind of easier to kill, especially if she W's in. Again, one of those champions where you're looking for them to go in first, then they have no escape. Braum, extremely hard to kill, has his E to block everything, has his W to jump away, has his Q to slow, has his ult to peel. Super hard to kill. Bard, you know, we've all played against this champ, Eing through walls, stunning you as you E through. Very hard to gank. I could almost put him in very hard, but the very hard is a whole different category in itself. Kennen, E, very hard to kill. Fiora, again, you're playing off all these like kind of bruiser champs. You're playing off them, playing really aggressive into you. You're really watching them. It's like what I like to call like a gust of wind kind of gank. Like a gust of wind could kill them. That's what you're kind of looking for in those kind of champs. Camille, she has her E hook shot. She also has her ult. If she ults you or your laner, she'll knock back everyone else in that area. Very hard to kill. You can also block Camille E though. Jax, he needs to Q forwards. If you're playing a champion that relies on auto attacks, he needs to have used his E. Very hard to kill. Once those two things are down, once he jumps forwards, you're playing off his aggression, you can punish him. Lissandra, she has her W, which roots you. She has her E, which is a big claw, which just gets away. Her claw needs to be down. Sometimes, you know, she also has an ult, which she can ult herself and she can kind of play for counter ganks. Very hard champ to gank. Kind of needs her E to be down mostly. If she ults on herself, you know, she's kind of like a sitting duck after that. Gwen, another champ you're playing off her aggression. If she uses her W, right, her little invuln, can be easy to kill compared to some of these other champs. But again, it's playing off her aggression. If you're just ganking her, she has E and W, hard to kill. Vladimir, single ability needs to be down. Hits its W, but he also sometimes, or generally will take phase rush, so it's hard to kill. Akshan, oh my goodness, just presses E, gets away. usually solo kills your lane and then has a reset. His E also resets, so after he kills your lane, he gets another one, which is balanced. Okay, so that's the hard category. And actually, yeah, you guessed right. It actually gets even harder up here. So looking at the very hard category, so this is very much so that whole idea of like, these are all assassins basically, right? These are basically all assassins. So they have multiple jumps and OP mobility. So let's go through them. So Zed has his ult and his W. I would encourage you, if Zed has been something that you've been hard to kill, is hard for you to kill, just jump into a practice tool. Any of these characters, right? If you just like, oh man, how does this champ work? Just jump into a practice tool. This is going to help you more than anything. So Zed has his W and his ult. He can also jump back to his ult Shadow. Very, very mobile, hard to kill. Needs to have his W down, especially pre-6. When his W is down, kind of easy to kill. But obviously he can also swap to his W. So if you're chasing him around. Yone, easy to kill if he eases forwards, but the thing is he also can ult away and he also has his Q. So just like 3 mobility abilities, right? That's balanced. Trinity is hard to kill because of his ult and his E. Again, if he has those 2 things down, if he's playing aggressively, kind of like the bruises before, if he's playing really aggressively and he's using all his abilities like that, you can kill. Talon, if he's near a wall, don't even think about it. If he's not near a wall and he's pre-6 in mid lane, kind of can kill, but if he gets to a wall, he's out. Pyke has his W, has his E. His E is super OP and it's just fast to use. Very hard to kill, needs his W and E down. Nefiri has her jump, has her W, invuln. Very hard to kill though. Kiana is a champion where she has her little green, which is her invis. Very hard to kill. She can just keep using WQ, WQ, WQ and green. And she's just invis, and then she can E through a minion or through you. Hard to kill. Needs to use those abilities or needs to be playing aggressively. LeBlanc, if you've ever played against LeBlanc, you know. If you kind of know how some of these champs work, it does make it a lot easier. Kind of like Zed, right? Where if she W's forwards, if Zed W's forwards, they can blink back or towards. But, you know, LeBlanc blinks backwards, which even makes her even more OP. She can also use her Mimic W on her ult. So she basically can have 4 different dispositions. She can W forwards, go back, W forwards, go back. Like, it's just very, very hard to kill. She also has a passive. Oh my goodness, this champ's ungankable. Akali, oh my goodness, a million dashes. Also has invis, W, E, ult, too much. Can't gank Akali unless she has no W and no ult. If she has no W and ult, you can kill her. Fizz, you're looking for his E and his Q. A little bit easier. A lot of the time, Fizz tries to use his E to clear the wave. So once you see Fizz use E to clear wave, he only has Q. He'll try and Q back through the minion wave, but a lot easier than some of these other champs, to be honest. And of course, these 2 categories, like, I don't know, they're kind of interchangeable. I just threw this together and because I knew I was going to talk about them all. Katarina, blinks, dagger, reset, blink, kill, reset, blink, hard to kill. So when you try and kill a Katarina, she needs to E in and press W and have that reset gone and then use her in a second blink. Very hard to kill. Another one of those champs where you're playing off her aggression. She's an aggressive champ. All these assassins are very aggressive champs. So if they are low, it's easier to kill. Okay, and that basically sums up all these hard and very hard champs. And so finally, we get to this last category, which is the 1v2, 2v3 machines. So these champions are not necessarily like super hard to kill. You just need to be very, well, some of them are actually, which we'll get to. You just need to be very, very careful about them 1v2ing you or 2v3ing you. So for example, Alawi and Heimer, they're basically just pressure sponge. They have 0 escape. If they're doing fight or flight, they're choosing fight every single time. Alawi is very notorious. The more enemies she versus, the actually stronger that she gets with her ult. Especially when you verse Alawi, you need heal cut, like Ignite, or you have heal cut built. But just be very, very careful about these champions. Usually you just want to avoid them. They'll set up their turrets. They'll set up their, you know, whatever Alawi does. Try and avoid them. Renekton sometimes is just a super OP champ early game where he can just turn around and 1v2 with his ult. His ult is like a super strong ability early. He also has insane mobility, so very, very hard to kill Renekton. Set, another one of those champs that can't really escape, so he'll probably just choose to fight you and 1-for-1 with you. Same thing with Aurelia. She kind of has good escape because she can Q around the wave, but she'll most likely just try and kill you. All Aurelia players are just psychopaths anyway. They'll just try and kill you. Cassante, especially when he starts building tank items, super hard to kill, true damage, will try and isolate his 1v1s. Kled kind of has a mixture of both like Renekton, just has a super strong, usually take his Ignite and stuff like that as well. Most likely will just try and 1v2 with his OP passive. Volibear, kind of new champ, especially if he's going like the carry build. Most likely will just stand his ground and fight. Same thing with Yorick, will stand his ground and fight. Singe will, you know, make you chase him around, kind of, you know, playing the 1v2, playing the 1v even 3 sometimes. You know, sometimes these champs are just like pressure sponges that you really just kind of want to ignore unless you're really certain and you have a lot of experience against versing them and you know what they do. It's kind of better just to avoid. Neela, another one of those two champs, especially these two AD carries paired with Taric. They're really good at just turning around and killing you. So it's just something I thought I'd throw in here, just so you guys know to watch out for these guys, because these guys will probably try and turn around and kill you. Of course, some of these other guys can try and turn around and kill you as well, like Fiora, for example, will try and turn around and kill you. Wukong, for example. But these guys are really just, they don't really have any mobility built in. They're just going to try and turn around and kill you and try and trade 1-for-1. So it's just something to look out for. Part 5, mindset. Ganking junglers. To finish off this video, I want to talk about mindset, and more specifically, one of the biggest traps I see players fall into, which is thinking that they have to gank on champions, for example Lee Sin, because isn't he a ganking jungler? To keep it short, champions have strengths and weaknesses. One of Lee Sin's strengths is that he has a lot of damage and mobility early game, which makes his early ganks quite effective. However, the trap comes when you decide from champ select that you are going to level 3 gank no matter what, instead of assessing the situation as it unfolds in the game. There is absolutely nothing wrong with full clearing on a champion like Lee Sin if the game is very passive and you don't see any good opportunities. Camps up versus camps down. This is a concept I created after coaching hundreds of players to give them a framework and rule on when to skip camps and go for a gank. If we have camps down and go for a gank that is unsuccessful, or we just get a flash, it's no problem. We are still using our time effectively. If we went for the same gank and we had camps up, this would not be the most effective use of our time, and farming those camps would have equated to more than what the gank gave us. So simply put, camps up equals 90% certain that we're going to get a kill. Camps down equals can and should gank even if it's just to burn a flash, or to clear some vision until our camps spawn again. Reflection. Going back to what was said in the intro, failing ganks is a part of learning, but what is important is that we reflect on why it failed. Refer back to this framework that we learned in the video and slowly build our champion knowledge game by game. If you got to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this guide or were able to learn something from it, make sure to let me know by leaving a comment, dropping a sub, or leaving a like. And if you are serious about fast tracking your learning, check the coaching links in the description below. Until then, see you all next time.